Boom. And I clicked the button. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Vagabond Dog Industry Chats. This week's guest, Alanna Linayre of Toadhouse Games, or Team Toadhouse. You guys are making a game called Call Me Sarah, which is a visual novel about making friends as an adult. An interesting premise. And there's also a series of vignettes set in the same, I don't want to say cinematic universe.
Yeah,
but,
cinematic universe. It's
right.
called the Sarah universe.
Gotcha.
Sarahverse.
That includes Roll for Confidence, Cultivating Habits, Delightful Introductions, and the one I played this week, Good Lookin Home Cooking, which is available now on itch. Thank you for coming on the show. You are also the force organizing the incredibly popular indie bundle for Palestinian Aid on itch.io, which is a topic we'll talk into. But yes, thank you for coming on the show. It's good to have
Having me.
No problem. I guess let's start off talking with Good Lookin Home Cooking, because it's the one I can speak most to, because it's the one I played through twice. First, I apparently have really bad interpersonal skills because everything fell apart, and our dream of creating a food court of food truck stands became a not so successful in the end. The game is a visual novel about two ladies who are building a small food empire in a small town that is not so familiar with ethnic foods. And the decisions you make throughout it. It's a relatively classic traditional visual novel game that leads to variant endings. Can you tell us a little bit more about the game, or give a better explanation, because I think I butchered it?
You did great. It's basically two childhood best friends running a food court during Ramadan. It goes into the difficulties of running a business with your best friend. It goes into different types of pressures from your family and how to handle that. It goes into the first generation American experience. It talks a lot about Amira's Muslim identity and Ramadan itself. And it also touches upon, all of our games touch on mental health in some capacity. So for this particular one, Amira self-harms and she doesn't handle the stress well. And depending on your choices, stuff happens.
Right. One of the big themes that I noticed in the game through my two playthroughs is that the capacity to work through personal drama is like almost a requisite for success in business. So I was curious to hear a bit about your philosophy in terms of that.
Sure.
Do you believe that it's absolutely essential that we charge through our emotional dramas
Charge
with each
through
other?
them? I wouldn't say it that way. So what I find interesting when people talk business is that they separate humans from business, as if humans aren't just innately emotional creatures. We are emotional creatures. Once you accept that, life gets so much easier. Everything is built on emotion. You can say that you're a hardcore business person who, no, I'm only logic. No, you're not. You're human. You're a bag of hormones. Everything is emotional. So once you've accepted that and you get to know yourself a little better and know how you react in certain situations and understand that absolutely everything, even logical decisions, are based in emotion, it gets a lot easier. So for me, healthy boundaries is a huge thing. It changed my life. So that's kind of it's definitely a gameplay mechanic in Call Me Sarah, but it's in everything I write in all of my games. And I feel like if you are running a business like we are, to like, for an example, right? Okay, so you get a bad comment on your itch game, an emotional response that is an immature emotional response would be to get defensive and to be a keyboard warrior and type back like, how dare you, how discouraging to the game devs that you would write such a thing, and etc. Kind of like what happens to Jessica and Amira in Good Lookin Home Cookin. I like Amani's advice because it's, take a step back, hear what they're actually trying to say, and then decide if you like what they say, if you can take what they say. Sometimes people are saying something different. So in Amani's example, it was She was told that she was unfriendly to non-binary people, and her gut reaction was to get very defensive, but she took a step back and asked, "What do you mean? Explain to me. How can we be more welcoming?" And what she found out, it was as simple as the bathroom thing. They didn't have somewhere to go. They knew that Amani stood for equal rights and LGBT friendliness, and the fact that something as basic as having a bathroom it wasn't binary, wasn't something that Amani thought of, made them feel a certain way. In that example, they felt betrayed. But it was an easy fix, you know? And if you get a comment or whatever online, and it's, for example, I got a lot of Islamophobic comments in my inbox when I released Good Lookin Home Cookin. So I can easily look at that comment and going, oh, cool. So this is a hateful person who didn't even play the game, is just upset that I have a hijabi main character. Not worth my time. Delete. Done. Move on. And you don't even let it get in. So it sounds like a logical thing, but it's not. It's knowing that this person's having an emotional response, but is it useful for me? And is it something that I can use and take on? Is it like, where do I end and they begin? I could go, oh, that's really hurtful. I'm just trying to do good representation. Or I could say anything, right? It's not worth it. I'm not going to change hearts of an Islamophobe. That's not what I'm here to do. So knowing what's yours and understanding that absolutely everything is based in emotion helps you be a better business person.
Right. Yeah, the dealing with reviews. I mean, I've never had to. I mean, a little bit, but not particularly had to deal with a ton of phobias coming into play in terms of commentary on the games. But it's still, getting negative reviews is a hard thing to swallow and a hard process to get over. So I'm curious, for anybody who's going to be having to deal with that, what were the sort of things that eventually led you to properly mentally condition yourself for not Islamophobic comments or sexist comments or whatever, the real ones that really hurt, where they reveal truths about the game? Here are the flaws. Here is where you actually need to improve. Like, once we get past that step of listening and hearing, how do we get over that pain of accepting our shortcomings?
I think you accept that it's painful. It's like getting over stubbing your toe. It's gonna hurt for a minute. You're just gonna have to deal with the pain for a minute. I think that there's like a space between when something occurs and your reaction. And I try really hard to mentally train myself to give myself as much space and time as I possibly can so that I can choose how I want to react to something. So if someone says something about the game that I know they're right and it's a shortcoming and that's on me and I messed it up, and maybe it was a decision that I decided to keep that in there, but it still hurts when they bring it up because it's like, I know, but if you understood why I did these decisions, I could go into it. I could say, I didn't have voice acting because I'm self-funded and I didn't get funding and I couldn't afford the voice acting, and I get that it's an accessibility thing, and I get that it's a this and I get that it's that. I get that the TTS voice didn't say Pakora correctly and it says Pakora and it sounds terrible. I understand. I get it. I'm so upset because I did get a lot of people going, oh, you know that it's Pakora, not Pakora, right? I'm like, I'm married to an Indian man. Yes, I am aware. I wrote the game, but it's not helpful for me to say that, even though that's my gut thing. So I take a beat and I go, right. Well, first I say, how does the person I want to be respond to this? Because sometimes it's not how I want to respond to it, because I want to be petty, I want to defend myself. So how does the person I want to be respond to this? Well, the person I want to be is cool and calm and collected and level-headed and a good businesswoman. And she knows that she made the best game that she possibly could. And she also understands that this person, even if they say it in a way that is hurtful, they didn't have to comment. They're coming from a place of caring. If they comment at all, it means that you did something. They're caring about your game in some way. You got an emotional response from them. So good job. You did your job. You got an emotional response. Someone played your game and they gave you feedback. And it was good feedback because you already knew it and they are right. So why are you getting upset with good feedback? Take a beat, go feel your feelings over there. Don't let that don't push your onto them. And then once you've formulated how you want to handle it, proceed. So sometimes it might take me a day, legit, where I'm just like, and then I figure out how I want to handle it. And it's not necessarily that I respond to every comment, but it could be a patch that I put out, or it could be, you know what, I'm going to let that go. I knew that that game choice was something that I made because it was the smartest thing. It sucks that people are bringing it up, but I'm going to let that go because I know that it was a good choice, even if they don't get it. Sometimes I tweet about it just in general, just like, hey, I'm aware the TTS sucks. I'm doing my best over here.
Right.
However, I want to respond to it.
Right. Yeah, I find I find myself always addressing it with more work. I try and fix everything. I don't know what it is about me and my personal style, but as somebody brings up my game has a lot of possibility space.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, you could go in that door. You could go in that door. You could talk to this person. You could. Right. And so when there's a gap in, that almost infinite possibility space and what people try to do, and when there's no response to it, I always dive into trying to create more and more and more. And I've been putting out patches and updates with an insane amount of content for over a year now on this game. And people have responded very well to it, but it is also very taxing.
Yeah.
And
Tired?
always. But I want to get better at that, like, letting go part. So, how do you personally let go of an imperfection?
I know that I make the best decisions I can in the moment, and I trust myself. It's building trust with yourself. I trust that I'm a good game developer. I trust that I'm learning and I'm improving every day. And I trust that whatever decision I made at the time was the best decision that I could have made at the time.
Okay.
And so I have to trust my artists, and I have to trust my composer, and I have to trust the people I've hired, and I don't micromanage them. I have to trust myself the same way. And I trust that I did the best I could, and that was the best decision at the time, and that I will never make everyone happy.
Right. Now, I notice a lot of similarities between the journey of opening a food truck, food court, and releasing a game. The
You're keen, yes.
very subtle. Because it's ultimately the journey about a business based off of passion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's essential for you to have passion in your work? Have you ever had non-passioned work?
I think that there will be days that even if you do have all the passion in the world, there will be days where you don't want to do your job and you still have to do it. So I think it's more important to do it and do the job, even if it's just like this much this day, and then on the day that you feel really good, do this much, even if you just do a little bit a day, than worrying about like passion. Because if you're like, for example, if you're climbing a mountain, right? Like some days you're like, yeah, I'm gonna climb this mountain, and you're like gung-ho and you go 7 miles. And some days you get up and you're just like, I am tired and I don't want to climb this mountain. I don't want to know why I'm on this mountain. I'm assuming that I liked it at some point. I don't even know if I want to be on this mountain anymore. But even if you go like 100 feet, that's 100 feet more than you did the day previous, and it's 100 feet less that you have to do the next day. So I think it's more about showing up and doing a little bit every single day than worrying about like if you feel really passionate about it. I think also, though, if you notice that there are more days where you hate what you do than the days that you love what you do, that maybe it's time for a career change. And that's okay too. I don't know why there's this idea that when you're 18, you have to choose your college degree and then that's what you do for the next 50 years. And that's it. I think it's totally fine for people to swap careers after, like, give it a go for 2, 5 years, whatever. When you know you're done, you know yourself better than anyone else, and then swap careers. I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Do you think it's possible to be successful while being emotionally removed from your craft or the partnerships and relationships within that craft?
Yeah.
The
You just
game,
do the good work.
just do
It
the
doesn't
good
have to
work.
be, yeah, just do good work. It doesn't have to be passion. You don't need to absolutely love it. I think when you do love it, things that come out of love and passion are a little bit more special, and so they might sell better.
Hmm.
But like, I'm surely there are plenty of people who, especially with AAA, with those specialized things, where they're like working on the same cup for 5 years that is in like a bookcase in Skyrim.
Hmm.
Surely that, they're not going in there like, yeah, I'm the cup person, and they're like gung-ho about it every single day. You live for like little moments. So I'm hoping that the release day where they see the reaction and everyone like collects their cup and then they keep their cup and they don't care if they're being over encumbered because of their cup, that they get something out of it and they get something out of something like some other aspect.
Hmm.
But I wouldn't say, you're not supposed to wake up, eat passion for breakfast, work with passion, and then go to bed feeling good about yourself. I don't think anyone does that. And I think that's trying to be a perfectionist. And I think that's a really hard ruler to put yourself up to. Because imagine if you're not passionate one day, then you probably feel like a failure. Like, why am I not passionate about this? I should be passionate about it. When I was an actor, acting is a passion field as well. Um, and there were plenty of days that I went in, I didn't want to do a job, or I was tired, or the job went on for 16 hours, and by the end of it, I was like not my best self, and I was whinging and being a bit bratty because I just didn't want to be under the hot lights anymore, and I didn't want to do it anymore, or I had a particularly bad director, and I didn't want to show up and do my job anymore. But you live for the things that you do like about it. I love opening night. I love being in front of an audience. I love the feedback a live audience gives me. I love having said that I was in a show. I love like the little bit of bragging rights I got from it. There was a lot of things that I enjoyed about it that kind of not made up for the other stuff, but like at least made it wasn't all that other stuff, you know?
Right. It's actually quite interesting to hear you say that, because I find that the game, um, sort of like when I played completely with a complete emotional reservation, I did not find any success. And so I'm curious how you correlate the moral of the game, with that stance about having success with an emotional reservation.
I think when you're upset about something, doing in it without any other perspective doesn't get you further. So I think it's important to reach out to your peers and get perspective when you're upset about something and talk things out. So when Jessica is upset with Amira and she's fuming and she's like she slams the table and
Mhm.
Amira storms off, um to not talk to Amani in that moment is almost keeping it bundled up inside. And in my opinion, because I wrote it that way, in that particular moment, it would be healthier because Amani already established herself. She watched them grow up. She's not a total stranger. They're there every single day. So it's not like you're opening up to a random stranger in a cafe. It's a person that they grew up with. She's kind of like not a mother figure, but like an older, wiser person. Um, I can see why some people didn't feel comfortable opening up to Amani, but I think it's the smarter decision because in that moment, Jessica only knows what she knows, and she needs a little bit of perspective because she's being a little immature in that moment. And Amani basically tells her, like, this isn't the end. Bad reviews are just a part of life. Decide how you want to handle it. And that gives her something to go off of so that she can be like, okay, cool, let me try to not take this out on Amira. Let me see it for what it is. Let me pull myself out of the situation, accept that I'm upset, but also accept that me being upset doesn't mean it's the end. And as for Amira, when you're talking to Kenta, it's after Amira self-harms. And in that moment, I think it's healthier to reach out because if you're self-harming, you need outside help. Because if you're stewing in your own thoughts, you need someone else to tether you up, just to even to distract you. Like Kenta just distracts her. He doesn't act like an armchair therapist. He doesn't tell her what to do. He asks her about food. He asks her about Ramadan. He talks about his vegetables. it's role modeling how to distract a person when you're self-harmy, and getting outside perspectives for when your business is so overwhelming that you're fighting internally. Sometimes you need that outside voice, you know?
Right. Right. No, that's a very good answer. Yeah, I think the game does model the path of seeking help very, very well.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, we'll leave it at that. I think there's a lot I want to get to with the show, but and I also don't want to spoil too much because the game is available and people can go check it out on the Team Toadhouse itch page.
Mm,
But I do want to talk a little bit about what's coming with Call Me Sarah. Now, I noticed you guys have a Steam page up already
yes.
with a date set for 2022, which, I mean, I know time is moving very fast, but it does seem relatively far out. From a business perspective, can you tell me about your decision to put a Steam page out so early, and have you found it useful for growing interest or the community around the game?
Yeah. So wish lists are extremely valuable for indie devs. And that first day pop for Steam sales will get you in the algorithm and will get you in front of more eyes.
Hmm.
So the more wish lists you have, they will get notified when your game goes live. So hopefully, if they're wishlisted, they're somewhat invested. So if the game goes live day one, they buy it, you get the pop, then you're in the algorithm.
Hmm.
As for so far out, if you play the vignettes at the end, at the very end of the credits, the trailer for Call Me Sarah plays.
Hmm.
So having vignettes, especially vignettes, come out before a main game is something that I don't know if anyone's done before, and if they have, I haven't heard it. It's very confusing for a lot of people. Usually, a vignette type deal is like a DLC afterwards, almost like the Clannad stories or like the Final Fantasy stories. They come out after the response. But ours coming out first is, like I said, it can be somewhat confusing. So I wanted people to see the trailer at the end of the game, see how it says a Call Me Sarah vignette, and then see the trailer and it says Call Me Sarah wishlist on Steam, and at least surmise in some capacity, oh, this is a short story in the same world as this game, and this game is the Big Mama game. This is just a short story with the same characters.
Right. Right. So then I'm curious, why is Good Looking Home Cooking not on Steam?
Well, Steam is $100 a game to
Right.
list.
Comes down to
I am an indie studio. Two, there is a huge process to listing on Steam that
Mhm.
is a lot more involved than Itch. And three, and most importantly, Itch takes 10% and Steam takes 30%.
Yeah, yeah, right. So from
So even when Call Me Sarah is on Steam, I will be listing that Itch link first.
right, and the Call Me Sarah, will it include the vignettes, or are these all separate products?
Separate. I might
Everything's separate.
eventually, if it goes to console, like package it in some
Mhm,
sort
mhm,
of
mhm.
way, but that's way in the future. I don't know yet.
Right. So I'm curious to talk a little bit more about the itch community at large. We've we've had our itch page for a long time. It's been our very like third like platform to focus on. It's got some weird game jam titles that we've done, and like oddities that kind of can't really make it anywhere else. But you guys really focus on it as a mainstay. So I'm curious, what drew you into itch, and what is it about the platform that keeps you guys so focused there?
Itch is a wonderful collaborative environment for indie devs. It is very like grassroots and crunchy, which I like. The fact that it allows you to choose how much Itch takes, that it doesn't have, it has a low barrier of entry. The visual novel community is very supported on Itch. So as a visual novel, I'll probably do better on Itch than on Steam or
Mm.
Game Jolt or any of the other ones. Um, I just like it. The people who run it are cool. I'm all about it. And even for the Palestinian bundle, like the just seeing the bundle for racial equality last year, and how much of a stir they gave that, and then even them being mentioned with the Epic and Apple saying like, what did they say? Not
The
inconceivable,
uh,
untouchable game.
Right. Games so horrific, pornographic, and evil they could not be mentioned in a court of law.
Unmentionable. Like, I forgot what
Unmentionable,
word they
right?
used. Unmentionable or something. But Itch was just like, yeah, we are. I love it. I just love it. I love that you're allowed to be depraved. It's such a good site. And there's so much. There's such good quality games on Itch. Often people think of Itch as just like game jam games or just like nothing garbage games. They're not. There's such good quality games. And I knew that before we did this bundle, but I moderated every single game that came into this bundle. And yo, there are such good games on Itch. Like, I don't know why anyone isn't praising Itch off the top of the mountain. Like, it's such a great platform.
That's interesting. It's actually very interesting when you talk about its freedom, the level of freedom it has, and I mean, the type of depravity it has is one thing, but in terms of like peak offensive content or hurtful content or harmful content, seems to be at a minimal compared to other wildly open platforms like Newgrounds in the past, or
Yeah.
that kind of thing. What do you think? Where does that stem from, and how did the community sort of veer that way?
I think Itch is just a very welcoming community for like the minority voices, for LGBT voices, for like games that normally don't do well on Steam because they get lost. They're not the next Fall Guys. They're not the next. You really need to have marketing and PR and funding, etc., to do well on Steam. You need to have those connections. You need to have the community. Steam, even Kickstarter, all of them have like a formulaic way for you to be successful. You can't just come out of the blue typically and be successful. Um, and I say that as a person who worked on a game that was an overnight success and did wildly great on Steam and even got a console release. Like those examples, what's it called? Survivor bias? Like we talk about those
Yeah.
examples. That's only because those are like the one few that happen.
Hmm.
But with Itch, because it's such a collaborative, supportive community. There you can do your own bundles. Like the way it's set up, it just has a different feel and vibe. Going through all the games I was moderating, I expected a lot more like hateful or not games I didn't want to include.
Right.
I had to knock off maybe like a dozen games from the bundle, and only one of them it was not safe for work. So I like one or two was not safe for work, and we said no, not safe for work. So I had to take those off. But the rest of them was just there was a couple of broken links, like it was a
Right.
tech thing. There was no games that were like I don't know how the word for it, but you know what I mean, like the hateful or
Yeah.
just gross in nature, you know?
Right. Um, so we have had our itch page for a long time. We've neglected it for a long time. I've made it a mission to renovate it this month and start getting more involved in the itch community. What steps should I and other inexperienced indie devs go for? Like I have a lot of experience on Steam. I know that world pretty well. I have not engaged that much with itch. So what do I do to find success in community on that platform?
Itch has a wonderful Discord. Itch has a wonderful forum on Itch. Just like, your old school internet from the 90s forum style. It also has a subreddit. Choose any of those, get to know the people there. But I would say the number one thing is to promote other games that are like yours. So my games are LGBT friendly, they're wholesome, they have mental health themes. I find games that are like mine. I genuinely play them. And if I enjoy them, I promote the crap out of them. And I get to know the devs and I hype them up when they have a new release or a new patch. And in kind, they do the same for me.
Now, when you say hype them up and promote them, is there a button I click on itch that says click here to promote, or are we talking the broader sense of Twitter and general messaging and
Well, I
word
would
of
say
mouth?
the broader sense is important. Like
Yeah.
Twitter is massive, but also you can leave a comment on people's games, and people, before they buy anything on Itch, they'll look through those comments. And if there's enough positive comments, that goes a long way.
Hmm.
The rating system on Itch isn't public. The rating only the devs see, but the comments anyone can see. So leave a rating, but then also, as you leave a rating, also leave a comment and list out the pros that you liked. Genuinely be kind if you want to make that connection.
Right.
And if you have constructive criticism, most of the time, as long as you're constructive about it, you can say such things. But most devs on itch just love what they do, and as most devs anywhere, but especially on itch, they love what they do. They want you to play their game. They want to be supportive and they want to support you in kind. And if you do that for them, they will do it for you.
Right.
And it's not like a follow for follow BS thing. It's
Right.
like a
Right. Right. Right.
genuine, like, I like your game, and then they play mine. They genuinely like my game. Like, no one expects like a tit for tat. It's not like that.
Mm-hmm. There's no like curator fee, like Steam has the Steam curators feature or anything like that.
There are
Formalized.
There are tags and there are bundles. So if you click on
Mm-hmm.
a tag, that will kind of like show you everything. There might be, as far as I don't know, but mine, because visual novel is a completely different beast and a different community,
Mm-hmm.
I tend to just go with the visual novel community as opposed to like like other,
Itch at large.
yeah, at large,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. All good points, and I'll keep that in consideration as we restructure ourselves on the platform. Um, so you mentioned a bit about representation and diversity in your games, and I did want to talk a bit about that. So your games have a very diverse cast of characters from a wide range of ethnic and cultural backgrounds, far beyond the makeup of your team. How do you guys assure that you are appropriately representing cultures and backgrounds that you do not exist within?
Yeah. We hire cultural consultants and sensitivity readers at every single playtesting stage. So playtest early, playtest often. And at every single stage, we hire people to come on to playtest. There are people who are playtesting for technical reasons, and
Mm-hmm.
that's one team. And then there are cultural consultants and sensitivity readers that are playtesting specifically because they are part of the community we are aiming to represent, and we want their feedback on how they feel, and we work with them intimately. We actively add their suggestions. For example, for Good Looking Home Cooking, one of the Korean sensitivity readers, she suggested for the text messages that we use the yellow and blue color scheme. Now, to you and I, that it just looks pretty, but to her, there is a app called Keiko Talk.
Okay.
I think it's Keiko Talk. I don't know. It's like a WhatsApp that is extremely popular in South Korea and for Korean Americans to talk to their cousins back home. And that is the color scheme. So if you are Korean and you look at those text messages, you recognize those colors instantly because you're on that app every single day. So it shows even more like that authenticity
Mm-hmm.
of the experience to not only have the appropriate Korean translated, which we paid for. That wasn't Google Translate. That is properly translated Korean in the text messages, but in the color scheme of the app they all use, and with the appropriate text slang that her mother would use, and with the appropriate text slang of a Korean American. So she doesn't use the most up to date text slang as if she was born and raised in Korea. She uses slightly outdated because our Korean sensitivity reader said, I could make it, hip or whatever, but you said she was almost 30, she's 27 years old, she was raised in America, she's never really lived in Korea. She probably wouldn't know this. Is it okay with you if I use like, last generations? Absolutely, 100%. That's why we hired you. Yes, please. Thank you so much.
Right. Um, I'm curious why is it such a focus for the studio? Like it seems every single one of the vignettes, every single one of the games has a very very proactive focus on representation, and I'm curious what the impetus for you is.
The games that represent me, I cannot play. So I have a mental illness, and games that are made for mentally ill people typically are very triggering. So they represent me in something that I cannot play. So, for example, Setsuna, I think is the name of it, where they show psychosis. Sounds like a great game. Wish I could play it. Probably would trigger me, probably would put me in the hospital. So I feel like if you're representing people, you should include them and you should they make them feel good to play the game and see themselves. I feel really good when I see a bipolar person in media represented, and it becomes an extension of my self-expression. So if I don't have the words to articulate how I feel, or if I'm just tired of advocating for myself, I show my friends Please Like Me, which is an Australian sitcom, The Mom's Bipolar, or I give them a Carrie Fisher book or a Carrie Fisher stand-up. And they can enjoy that media for what it is, a funny sitcom or stand-up or whatever, and at the same time learn about bipolar disorder so that I don't have to tell them absolutely anything because it becomes exhausting to advocate for yourself. So I want more of that. Representation's great, but if the people who you represent can't play what you're making about them, I'm not about it. Like I get for mental illness, it's good because then people who don't have mental illness can be put in the shoes of people who do have mental illness and they can understand it better. I get the reasoning behind it, and I'm happy that that exists. But I want to make games for people like me so that we can play it.
Right. Um, the there's a lot of the antagonist to this position often says that cultural groups should make their own media representing themselves, as opposed to even the most inclusive, most well researched sensitivity readers all day. It is not as good, or it shouldn't be done as much as if we were to uplift and have minority groups creating content about their own groups.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you stand on that position, and what do you say to people who sort of fall into that camp?
Remember that these vignettes are vignettes of Call Me Sarah, and Sarah is heavily based on me. She is an anxiety-filled girl who goes to therapy. Call Me Sarah is based almost tit for tat on my experience moving to Austin and starting over. The Fernby, the town I created, has lore that makes sense. It's not just token people because I wanted an after school special. It is a German created town back when the German immigrant wave came in through the United States in the Northeast. It's a fictional town, and that's represented by the town crest and the fact that it's called Fernby, a German word. The park is Weidensamkeit Park, which is a German word. The infrastructure is German. The community is mostly South and East Asian because I wanted to show how in America, often within generations, towns change. You often hear of people saying, oh, they don't look American. That makes zero sense to me. So I wanted to show how, like, even in a German created town, generations change. And depending on what's going on there, towns change. And change is good, change is okay. When Amir and Jessica were growing up, they even mentioned Amir was the only Muslim girl. There was a handful of brown girls, and she was the only Muslim one. There were no other Koreans in their classes for Jessica. So now there is a strong East and South Asian community. But when they were growing up 20 years ago, there wasn't. It's that, the influx, and it changes. Um, it's not like I don't think we have any Latina representation in this game because it didn't go with the lore. We didn't try to shoehorn people in.
Right.
So the main character of this universe is heavily based on my experience, and I am doing what you're saying. I'm writing my experience. But the setting I wanted to put her in, I wanted to show my world. I'm from New York. So my world is very diverse. I married an Indian man as he's first generation. I live that first generation life. I'm an Irish American dual citizen. So I know what it's like to have one foot in one country and one foot in the other. So although the flavor changes, the feelings are the same. So Jessica having one foot in Korea and one foot in America is just like me having one foot in Ireland and one foot in New York. It's just a different language and different practices. So if you focus on the feeling and the very specifics, then you're kind of just jigsawing in the other details.
Very good. Yeah, it's a much deeper process than a lot of the surface level. The counter argument is a very surface level sort of thing, and I'm glad that you have a very deep perspective on it. Um, we I would be remiss if we didn't start actually talking about the indie bundle for Palestinian Aid. This is how I came to be aware of you, and part of the reason why I wanted to have you on the show to talk about this. Can you tell us first off? I'll let you do the explanation. What is this, and what is it helping, and how can people find out more about it?
Sure. So, it's actually a good segue because we are highlighting and featuring a Palestinian game dev and his game Lila and the Shadows of War. So Rashid Abouidi is the game developer, and the bundle is buy Lila and the Shadows of War for at least $5 and get over 1,000 games, soundtracks, assets, and counting for free. We wanted to do that because of exactly what you're saying. It's a Palestinian issue, and we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just like, a bunch of white American saviors coming in to save the day.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to highlight a Palestinian game developer and show his game is about a little girl in Gaza in 2014 in the war. And that year, over 30%, about 30% of the casualties were Palestinian children. Um, so it's a very poignant and important game. And Itch was gracious enough to allow us to do it there. And we have it so that it's set up so that the money made from the bundle goes directly to UNRWA, which is the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. And the reason why they were chosen is because I forget the exact. It's nine. I want to say 97. It might be 93, but it's 90 something percent of their donations goes directly to aid. So it's not like one of those charities where 30% of it goes to admin fees. Most of it goes directly to aid, and they focus on food, physical, and most important to me, mental health services. So when I was watching the videos from coming in from Palestine, the thing that struck me the most, which I'm sure would make sense to everyone who's been listening, is seeing the little kids that I can actively see the PTSD forming. I recognize those symptoms. I have those symptoms and I can see it. And it broke my heart because I know how crappy of an illness it is to have. And I wanted to do something. So I put together this small bundle. I was hoping to raise maybe $500 with like a dozen or so games. And how Itch works is that when you build a bundle, if someone cancels, you need to cancel the whole thing and do it all over. So the original bundle was only 22 games, but one of the devs didn't want to confirm. They wanted to cancel. They didn't want to be part of it. So I respected their wishes and I canceled it and I redid it all. But I spent that whole day working on it. So a few other people, like maybe four, wanted to join in. And I said, sure, but you know what? I'm going to make this form, just fill it out. I'll do it in the morning. And when I woke up, over 500 people signed up.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a lot, and now it is grown to
And now it's over
to
1,000.
over 1,000. Um, why would an indie dev join this bundle?
Often indie developers don't have money, but they do have their creations and they have their time. So we have a lot of indie devs. This is completely grassroots. The moderators, we've played every single game to make sure none of them are broken or not safe for work. And that was all volunteers who volunteered their time to play each game, open it up, make sure it worked. We we make creations with our full heart. I think I've said this in the like little forum post, so I feel I don't want to like reiterate something that people might have already read, but I do truly believe it. Like we pour ourselves into our games, and even if you don't have money to donate, you do have time and you have these creations. So a lot of people felt the same way as me and didn't necessarily have money, but had their games and their time to donate. So that's how people have been helping in their way to bring relief to what's going on in Palestine.
Right. With that, the level of first, I mean, how did it the word get out so quickly? What how you mean? You said you went to sleep and then woke up and there was 500, and now it has continued to grow. What was the catalyst?
I don't know. I put a tweet out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the tweet was obviously retweeted a whole bunch of times, and um that's how people found out about it. Um but as for like, I couldn't, because I was asleep for most of it. I couldn't pinpoint like, yes, so and so retweeted,
Right,
and
right,
then
yeah,
we
yeah.
got 300 applications. It was like just group effort overnight to get everyone going, everyone retweeting and posting about it. Honestly, it was like, I got that I wrote the blog post and my name's all over it, but it was a complete group effort. It's
Mhm.
like the best group project I've ever been part of.
Right. Walk me through the process from that, oh crap, we now have over 500 people moment to today and and going forward to the launch. What have you guys been doing? I mean, you said you've been opening and playing all the games, making sure they all work, but has there been any other, I guess, administrative or whatever
Yes,
processes you have to go through?
tons. So first, um, the Black Lives Matter bundle last year was run by Itch, and so they were much more organized than I. I didn't expect much more than a dozen people, like I said. So I immediately reached out to people who know better than me and said, "What do I do? I don't know what to do." I was in a bit of a panic. I got some really good advice. I called up UNRWA and said, "Hey, there is a good possibility that I have a lot of money to give you. Is this something I can do? Do you have a contact that I can directly speak to for paperwork?" Because if the president was set last year with the Black Lives Matter bundle that made over $8 million, and I'm not saying I have $8 million to give you, but
Hmm.
could happen. So how do I go about this? Is that something you accept? What do I do? So I had to work directly with UNRWA and get them in contact with the people at Itch so that it could just bypass everything and go straight to them. Um, Itch, like I said, graciously allowed us to use their platform and took care of the tax stuff. So they know much better than me what goes into it, but they spoke directly with UNRWA. And so by working directly with Itch and UNRWA, we can make sure that the money goes as quickly and smoothly as possible to the Palestinian Aid and where it needs to go. So that was quite a lot of admin work. We also, so Lila and the Shadows of War was a mobile game, and we ported it to PC specifically for this bundle.
Interesting.
So that was quite a lot of work. We had to triple check all the submissions because in my naivete, a Google form, I mean, you could have, if you wanted to go into it and say, "I am Miyamoto, feel free to put Mario Tennis on there." And so we had to verify everyone's
Right.
identity and contact all of them. And in my naivete and not knowing how big this would get, I didn't ask for email addresses. I asked for Twitter handles. So that took
Nice.
quite a lot of work. A lot of it. You get it, right? It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
mostly, yeah.
A lot of digging in there.
Yeah.
Is there anything that about the process that, apart from the sheer volume of people who have signed on to participate, has really surprised you or you didn't expect, and that maybe people don't really realize goes on behind the scenes on bundles like these?
I think people need to realize the tax stuff, because if Itch didn't step in and help me with
Hmm.
that, that would have been a mess. Because it's seen, if you like, for example, if you were to do like a 10-person bundle,
Hmm.
you're going to take the hit on taxes. So let's say your little 10-person bundle makes $50. That's not so bad because it will look like income to you, and then of course you're going to immediately donate that. But even with your best of intentions, it looks like income, so you have to pay taxes on that income. So if you have an open-ended, "Hey, whoever wants to sign up bundle like I did," and it gets big, now you're into the tens of thousands of dollars owed
Right.
on taxes, unless you have this setup like what Itch has, where they've got like, I don't know what it's called. I'm sorry. It's like it's tax. I don't know the word, but basically for charity donations, there's a different way to go about it as if it was not income. So they know what they're doing and they set it up properly to make sure it goes as quick as possible.
Right.
Um, but knowing that, in my naivete, I didn't know that. Email addresses are so much more useful than social media handles.
Yes.
And I think the thing that I liked the most about what we did with this bundle is that we did center it around a Palestinian game developer.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the most important thing. So I think if you're trying to help a group of people, remember why you're doing it and center the people you're trying to help. So for example, even our games, a portion of our profits goes to the people we're trying to represent. So depending on the who's the main character in the specific vignettes, we donate a portion of our profits to a charity that helps whatever group they belong to. Because representation isn't just putting people in your games, it's making sure they can play your games and then also giving back to that community, especially if you're not part of it like me.
Right. Interesting. The taxation thing is definitely a thing I would have absolutely overlooked, and I've seen other devs with altruistic intentions overlook that, but I can imagine how it gets wildly out of scale on a very large bundle. But how did you come across Rashid? How did you come across his game? And what made Lila the center of the bundle?
Rami had connections
Rami.
to the
All things
Palestinian.
come back to Rami.
Right? All things. Rami connected us.
Gotcha.
So he knows everyone. And that's how I found Rashid. And Rashid took on a lot of risk by allowing us to highlight his game. Because remember, we all see what they're doing to journalists, etc., over there. And he's currently in Palestine. He's a dad. He's got kids. He's very brave for letting us highlight his game.
Right. That's very good. Right on. So, can you tell us more about the launch process from here? If people who are interested in buying the bundle, what should they look for? Where should they look?
Yeah. The moment it goes live, I will be spamming it until it's done. So if you follow me on Twitter, you will hopefully see it. The moment it goes live, I will tweet it out, and then I will legit just be talking about nothing else until it's over on June 11th. I'm hoping it goes live anytime soon. Like I don't want to say a certain day and be held to it, but like we're waiting on one last little puzzle piece, and that's it. The page is already made, the game's already linked, the blog post is already written, everything's up there. All we need to do is press live, but there's one last thing that needs to happen before it does.
The one last thing. Right. Well, I assume everybody is going to be looking forward to that. And I mean, it ends within June. You said June. Not
June 11th. It's
June
only
11th.
a week long. So you only have a week for the bundle, but there's like incredible games, like my game, of course. But there's also What Comes After is on there. Signs of the Sojourner, Moon Hunters, Cook Serve Delicious, Minute. Like those are just off the top of my head. Like there's so many good games part of this bundle.
Right on. And after the bundle is all said and done, are you going to be taking a bit of a break, or what is your back to dev?
Well, remember, I'm in the middle of production for Roll for Confidence.
Nice.
This was an accidental detour. I should be writing a game right now, but instead I'm doing this.
Right.
Happy to do it, but also, yes.
Right. I did notice that you guys have a game jam planned for July as well.
Yes,
It's a thing we do at our studio quite a lot with the community. So I'm just curious, Dev to Dev, what is your process like with the game jams?
The theme will be, so I have a community manager and she's running most of it. The theme, she's announcing the theme, I think July 1st, but it will be Ren'Py based visual novels, and we're having little workshops and live streams that are like informative. So I'll be doing one, I think Maya has me doing one on basics of like Ren'Py coding. I think she has Kirk doing one on how to like loop music properly for visual novels. I don't know, I won't say that one because I don't know if that one's confirmed yet. And I think Maya herself is doing a like a history of visual novels. She has a whole bunch of things planned. But it will be like little workshops that we'll live stream on Twitch, as well as we have in our Discord a room so that you can, go in there and make teams or just hype each other up, whatever you want to do. And it's basically to show that Ren'Py is a very accessible, user-friendly, entry-level piece of software that anyone can make a game with. So we'll make basic, quick little visual novels so that people kind of get their feet wet, and maybe some people will enjoy making them and keep going.
Right on. Yeah, I mean it's very similar to what we do here, but with RPG Maker. I'm always excited to see the games that come out of jams, especially from new people who are entering and maybe using the engine for the first time. So I'm looking forward to that. Are you guys going to be apart from Twitch and on, I guess, your itch page? Is there going to be a collection of the games afterwards?
Yeah, absolutely. On itch.
On itch. Okay.
Yep.
Yes. Very good. Very cool. Well, I don't know. I think we've covered almost everything. Is there anything you want to tell everybody about Roll for Confidence or Delightful? Oh, that's what made
Delightful. It's like delightful, but
Yes.
tea because it's in a cafe.
Right.
Delightful.
Yeah, tell us about the other vignettes because I've only read little blurbs about them. But if you wanted to, because you're in the middle of Roll for Confidence now, what can you divulge?
So, Roll for Confidence is about Sophia. She is a trans woman who runs a arcade called Screen Time Arcade with her brother Wei, and they have a Monday tabletop RPG night. And Sophia herself is kind of reserved and isn't as assertive as she wishes she was. So she makes a RPG character to try to like try it on for size and see what it would be like to be assertive. And basically, the plot is how games can teach us a lot about ourselves, and especially like role playing games can just, be self expression. Delightful introductions is Billy and Imani in the cafe, and then cultivating habits is Kenta from Good Lookin Home Cookin, his story.
The crossover.
Yes.
That's very cool. The Roll for Confidence story strikes a note. There's a portion of my game that in my game sometimes always musters that is also set in a role playing scenario that has characters mucking about. I'm very curious to see another interpretation of the scenario. So that's exciting. So guys, I'm going to drop the link for Team Toadhouse on itch in the chat. You guys can go check out all the news on the vignettes and play Good Lookin Home Cooking, as well as I guess you can follow Alanna on Twitter. The tag is on the screen right now. Is there anything else you wanted to share with everybody? Anything cool you wanted to tell people before we skedaddle today?
What I would say is that so Toadhouse Games is our visual novel studio, but Team Toadhouse is an umbrella. We do a lot of really cool things. So our game jam is Team Toadhouse, basically anything community based. But we're very self-care, mental health aware. So our Discord, there's a space to hype people up. There's a space to kind of like if you're having a bad day and you just want a bunch of puppy pictures, like you can get that. We have a place for that. We do self-care sync up on Wednesdays, which is basically like 2 minutes of calisthenics and a 3-minute meditation just to reset yourself. So it's about, life's hard and that's okay. We try to give you the tools to help you through it, but life is worth living. So if you're having a bit of a hard time and you want to meet gamers who also get that and we don't do the fake positivity thing. You're allowed to say you're having a bad day. You're allowed to, as long as you go by the code of conduct rules, you're allowed to be honest. Join Team Toadhouse. It's a great little Discord.
Right on. Well, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for all that you do. Giving Kittens asks, would sending the Palestinian Aid bundle to news reporters be helpful?
Yes.
There you go, Kittens.
Especially once it goes live.
Which is on...
When
the last magic piece goes into place. Okay, great. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to send you away. It looks like Chell Wong is doing a stream right now.
Yes, let's raid Chell.
We'll raid Chell, and I will be back actually later. Or no, I'm not coming back later tonight. Tomorrow we'll be doing more work. Like every day we work. That's what we do here. But thank you so much, Alanna. See y'all later. Bye.